This week, on This Week Uncensored, a $67 million Medicaid settlement meant to serve the public good. A $10 million diversion that didn't go where the headlines said it would. A non-profit tied to Florida's First Lady now facing a criminal investigation. And public money, taxpayer dollars, allegedly funneled through charitable grants, only to resurface in political war chests. This isn't just a scandal, it's a blueprint. Today, we dig into the tangled web of charity, politics, and power. The episode is called Hope and Hubris, because what was branded as a state-sponsored mission to help families might just be the beginning of the unraveling of Florida's first family. Let's follow the money. Let's expose the truth. Let's get uncensored.
From members of both parties over a
Welcome
$10
to
million
This Week Uncensored. I am your host, Stevenson Benoit, and let's
the $10
talk
million
about
came
hope
from a settlement from a
and
healthcare company,
hubris.
which was then used to help.
Now, in
fight
2021,
the
Florida's
political
First
agenda.
Lady Casey DeSantis
Fox
stepped
13's
into the
Evan
policy
Axelrod reports
spotlight
from the
with the
newsroom
launch of
on
Hope
the
Florida,
payments that
a
some say
faith-based
might be
welfare
illegal.
reform initiative tucked under the Department of Children and
that
Families.
the payments were being made straight to the charity.
The mission,
without being
to move
reported
Floridians
to
from
the state.
dependence
Then
to
they found
dignity,
out that those
not by
payments were
handing
used
out
to
more
fight
government
the
checks, but
amendment
by
that would
assigning
legalize
guides to walk
recreational
alongside
marijuana.
families in crisis.
Lawmakers
It
want to
was
know
framed as
that
innovative,
was
compassionate,
Governor
a spiritual
DeSantis
alternative
has never
to
shied from a
bureaucracy.
fight, and when it involves his
But
wife, forget it.
Hope
Shame
Florida did
on
not
you
stop at
in
just
the Florida
guidance,
House
because
and
by
your
2023,
terrible
Casey's team had
behavior
created a
leadership. The
nonprofit
governor is
arm,
responding
the
to
Hope
tweets
Florida
like this from the
Foundation,
House
quietly
Republican who
established
led a
a
committee
position
hearing
for
last
big
week who
moves.
said this was theft of taxpayer
And their
money,
first
and another
windfall
asking if
came
top
just
DeSantis
1
officials
year
and Casey
later.
DeSantis had advance notice
In
about
2024, the state of
In
Florida
October,
settled a
healthcare
massive
giant Centene
$67
agreed to
million
pay $10 million
Medicaid
to the
fraud
Hope
case for
Florida
Centene,
Foundation, the
one of the
charity that
largest
supports
healthcare
Casey's
companies
Hope
in the
Florida
country.
program. That
And
was
instead of
not
sending
disclosed to
all of that
legislators
money back to
against
state
state rules.
agencies
That
or
was a policy
reinvesting it
decision
in public
made by
health
Alca that I
programs
believe was illegal.
that
Since
Medicaid
last
was
week's
there to
hearing,
support,
it was revealed that the
$10 million of that
wound up
money
in
was
political
peeled away
action
quietly
committees
and
that
handed
fought
directly
against the
to
recreational
the brand new
marijuana
Hope
amendment,
Freedom
meaning that
Foundation,
money
Hope
the
Florida
state won
Foundation.
because a healthcare
There was no
company
bidding,
overbilled for
there was
ratings
no
for
legislative
Medicaid,
debate,
wound
there
up
was no
being
public
harnessed
accountability,
for the governor's
just a
political
direct
gain.
funnel of public money into a private
Because
nonprofit,
looking at
and
dollars
that,
should
my
have gone to
friends, is
general
where the
revenue,
real trail
they were
begins.
diverted away from
Now,
general
coming up
revenue.
next,
As best I
we
can
will
tell, it
follow
looks
that
like these
$10 million,
used for political
and what we
purposes.
The
find
Attorney General, though, who
may
was the
shake
chief of
the
staff when
foundations
payment
of
was
power
made, argued today
in
that
the
because
Sunshine
Hope
State.
Florida is designed to wean people
Let's follow
off
the
of public
dollars.
assistance, that using it to fight.
Now, that $10 million from the Centene Medicaid fraud settlement, it did not go to hospitals. It did not expand care. It did not expand health care. It didn't even hit the state's general fund. It didn't hit the state, period. That's more money the state could have used, put it in reserves, put it in coffers, do whatever. No, the state does not have that money. It went straight to the Hope Florida Foundation. Then things got creative. Because instead of using those funds for direct community aid, the foundation turned around and granted $5 million each to two little-known nonprofits: Secure Florida's Future and Save Our Society from Drugs. If you've never heard of them, don't feel bad. Neither have I until I started this report. Now, here's where it gets murky. These two groups, acting almost in sync, lockstep, funneled $8.5 million to a political committee aligned with Governor Ron DeSantis. The name of that committee? Keep Florida Clean. And who's running that political action committee? Who's running that PAC? None other than James Utmeyer, DeSantis' former chief of staff. What is he doing now? Well, guess what? Now he's Florida's attorney general. Good luck prosecuting him, because he's the state's top prosecutor. And the PAC's main target? Killing the 2024 initiative to legalize marijuana, a move that happens to fire up DeSantis' conservative base. And guess what? They succeeded. Now let's recap, because there's more. But we gotta lay the foundation here. Let's recap. A Medicaid fraud settlement routed through a state-connected nonprofit, filtered through two shadowy organizations, and that money deposited neatly into a political war chest. You can call it clever, you can call it funny money, you can call it corrupt. But around here, we call it money laundering with sunshine. And as the money flowed, oversight did not. Oversight did not follow. Because during recent testimony, the cracks began to show and the truth started leaking out. Foundation Chair Joshua Hay took the stand, and what he admitted to the public was absolutely stunning. This nonprofit, funded by the state, registered by the state, and had employees that were running the organization that were paid by the state. No bylaws, no public board meetings, no tax filings, no record of private donors beyond the money that was handed over to them by the state. In fact, the IRS records paint the picture in black and white. The Hope Florida Foundation raised less than $900,000 privately in its first year. Now that's not just a shortfall. That is a rounding error next to the $10 million the state gave it the following year. $10 million of taxpayer funds. And it gets worse. Public records suggest the foundation may have operated without formal nonprofit documentation for months. Let that sink in. Think about it. A state-sponsored initiative. No formal governance. No transparency. And no independent funding. Yet this motherfucker was allowed to run full steam using official state agency logos and state paid employees to staff its operations. This is a private entity with public branding fueled by public dollars and virtually no public accountability. That is not a glitch in the system. We are not in the yes, we are in the Matrix. I was going to say we're not in the Matrix. Yes, we are in the Matrix, but this is not a glitch in the system. This is the system here in the state of Florida. Now, here's where the fire catches. Because this isn't just a story whispered in opposition circles or spun by left-wing media, partisan media. No, sir, no. Because guess who is spearheading this conversation? Florida House Republicans. Yes, you heard me. Republicans started asking questions, and one of the loudest voices, none other than Representative Alex Andrade. According to Andrade's tweet, he says, "This looks like a conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Every public official involved in this should be investigated, and the money should be returned." That is not just some rogue tweet. That's a sitting Republican lawmaker calling it what it is. Calling a spade, fraud. And he's not alone. It's not him by himself that is saying this. Florida House Speaker Daniel Perez didn't mince words either, calling the entire operation, quote, probably illegal. Then the hammer dropped, because back on May 20th, State Attorney Jack Campbell confirmed what had been whispered behind closed doors for weeks. A criminal investigation is now underway. Let that simmer. In fact, I'm going to give you a minute while I sip my rum babacoo from Haiti. The white, not the dark either. Now, a sitting governor's wife, the First Lady of Florida, now linked to an active criminal investigation, a criminal probe over public money, potential money laundering, and campaign finance violations. This scandal is not on the horizon anymore. It's not just over yonder, ladies and gentlemen. The scandal is here. It is live. It has risen, and it is being investigated, and it is knocking on Governor Ron DeSantis' door. And if everything else wasn't damning enough, it definitely gets worse. Because guess what? Our state, Florida's very own DCF, Department of Children and Families, they got in the mix Then they issued a cease and desist letter. They said, stop. Stop what you're doing. You can't do this. But guess who they sent that letter to? Not to the fraudster. Not to the rogue nonprofit. They sent it to none other than the Orlando Sentinel. That's right. A state agency tried to stop a newspaper from reporting on the foundation's wrongdoing. You let that register for a second. Because here in the United States of America, a government agency tried to silence the press. Freedom of the press? Not in the state of Florida. Unconstitutional? Without question. Desperate? If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I don't know. You tell me. Because when truth becomes a threat, the power will show its hand. And this time, the hand is coming from inside the house. Governor Ron DeSantis has dismissed the entire scandal as a manufactured fraud, a left-wing media hoax. However, it is the right wing that is spearheading this investigation. So you tell me, who's the hoax? Now, First Lady Casey DeSantis, you know what she's doing? She's gonna stand by her man. She's standing by her foundation, defending its mission to restore hope and uplift families. Their defenders have not been quiet either, because they are arguing that no laws were broken. The money was private, not public. However, it was state funds, so that is public money, not private money. And the outcomes, well, they claim, speak for themselves. However, I have yet to see any of the benefit of this said outcome. But here's the thing. If you build a pipeline from state settlement money to a private foundation with no bylaws, no board minutes, no tax filings, then pass that money through shell nonprofits into political action committees, even if you can find a loophole to stretch the truth enough so you can call it legal, just enough to call it legal. At the end of the fucking day, Americans, Floridians, my brothers and sisters, ask yourself, is this shit ethical? Is it moral? Is it moral? I wouldn't even ask, is it American? But we all know it's American because it's been happening in America since the dawn of America. So, fuck that. Is it ethical? Is it moral? Is it right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what's legal, even though in the court of law, it's definitely about what's legal, but it's also about, is it right? And that is where the story is starting to really cook. Because right now the investigation is active, subpoenas are likely. The Florida legislature is mobilizing, and eyes in Washington, including the Department of Justice, the DOJ, they are now watching closely to see what unfolds. This isn't just about a nonprofit anymore. This scandal may not only bury the Hope Florida Foundation, it could derail Casey DeSantis' expected, rumored 2026 run for governor before it even begins. And as the pressure builds, and as the headlines shift, and as the truth fights its way through the spin, Lord have mercy, we will be right here watching, digging, reporting, and above all, keeping it uncensored. Thank you for tuning in to This Week Uncensored. I'm your host, Stevenson Benoit, the real Stevie B. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Tune in. Check. We go live on Twitch every now and then. I'll tweet out when I do go live. But follow me on Twitter if you want to catch those notifications, or subscribe to us on Twitch so you can get those notifications. And have a good day.